Hello and welcome to Celtic World, the YouTube channel and podcast that delights in the fact that the Celtic diaspora reaches to even the furthest corners of the globe. Do globes have corners? Is the Earth even a globe? These are the kind of questions we will not be tackling tonight in this show. So, from Greenock to Greece, Gourock to Gujarati, wherever you're watching from, you're very much part of a Celtic world. And yes, Paddy Lavery, it is a pre-record today rather than the same old chat about the season so far that seems to populate every medium during the international break. I'm sure you've seen plenty of that elsewhere. So I'm about to hit play on a video, but before I do, let me say hello to everyone who's in the comments. The aforementioned Paddy Lavery there, indeed. Ampang Boy, Christophe, Tam Mac, Mickey Burns. Mickey, you will be appearing sort of in this episode. Got to stay tuned for replaying your little video from the Leipzig game. All right, well, I'm just out of the shower and it was a very hot one, and that's why I am as red as a lobster. So I'm sure that can't be too pleasant for you. Maybe we should just get on with playing the video. Here we go. Let me know if the sound or anything needs adjusting. And we'll do that. Otherwise, I'll come back at the end just to wrap it up and scold you for straying off topic in the chat, like the naughty little boys and girls that you are. Okay, here we go. Here is my chat with Callum McFadden. Callum McFadden, welcome to Celtic World.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Well, we're delighted to have you. And it's been a while in the making. This show, we got in touch with each other a fair while back, but it was always going to be in time for this international break, you know, rather than just regurgitating all the same conversations that we've been having for weeks. We try and make it a bit more interesting and get some interesting people on who are maybe Celtic adjacent or fans or CSCs or journalists, as it is in your case. So let's start with that and explain who exactly you are.
So obviously, Callum McFadden, I am a writer for World Football Index. I also provide articles for a range of other publications, most notably probably Breaking the Lines. I do quite a bit for them. Anything that I do for World Football Index in terms of interviews is also published by One Football on their platform. And crucially, I suppose, in relation to this podcast, I'm an audio-descriptive commentator for Celtic. I do every home game and any games at Hampden as well. So it's something that I absolutely love doing. And as you can see with the sort of work I've done, whether that be written interviews or the commentary or podcasts or whatever it may be, I just absolutely love football. I've also written a book called Behind the Curtain of the Beautiful Game, where I have interviews with players, managers, referees, fans, just people from across a wide spectrum of the game, just for them to share their insights and try and take you sort of behind that curtain of what goes on behind the scenes as well as what goes on the pitch.
Brilliant. So behind the curtain of the beautiful game goes beyond Scottish football, does it? To all the places that you've experienced?
Yeah, so in terms of that, there are interviews with a range of people. The late great Andy Bremer, who obviously won the World Cup with Germany, he's got an interview in the book. Martin O'Neill is there, Norman Whiteside, the late Craig Brown's in there as well. Keith Hackett, who was the head of the referees in England, is a contributor to the book, as well as financial experts like Kieran Maguire and the football lawyer Daniel G. So there's a range of people that are obviously, some are have been based in Scottish football. Martin O'Neill, Craig Burley, Craig Brown, but there are people who are also from out with Scottish football as well.
Out with, that's a good Scottish term you don't see anywhere else. Are you aware of that?
That's true.
When I tell people that, they don't believe me. They're like, what are you talking about? Out with is a word that everyone uses throughout the English-speaking world. And it's definitely not the case. Anyway, okay, so behind the curtain of the beautiful game. Yes, all right. That sounds really interesting. So you're a freelance journalist, are you?
Yeah,
Or you work for one entity?
So freelance, so World Football Index, I'm with them sort of all year round, but the rest of it's just freelance. So I've had articles for Get German Football News or Portugal, and it just depends on what's going on in the world and if I've got the time to sort of track down some unique stories or viewpoints. So World Football Index is consistent, but I do appear in other outlets as well.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds quite glamorous, all this peering into the world of football in various different countries. And you're from one of the most glamorous parts of Scotland there, I see, according to your name there, Callum McFadden in Greenock. How are things in Greenock?
Fantastic. Well, it's great, obviously, being right next to the River Clyde and having some great views is very nice in the summer. Recently, with the weather here, it's been quite foggy and quite misty, so we've not had the chance to enjoy many of those views, and the weather's not been great, but I really enjoy being here, obviously close enough to Glasgow and close enough to Edinburgh if I have to get through there as well, so can't complain.
All right, well, let's take a little view into your career as we watch your show reel.
A brilliant win for you today, Robbie. 1-0 here away at Albion Rovers. It lifts you off the bottom of League Two. How proud are you of that performance?
Really proud, really proud. Obviously, I think a lot of people written us off, but we've given a massive performance today from start to finish. I thought we deserved the victory.
The top six finish mean to you and the club in general?
No, I've already stated it would be probably my biggest achievement. We've got the cup finals and I've coached in the Euros and little things that got finished third, got the Europe, but this with what has gone on in terms of the cuts and the amount of staff we've had and this group of players, I'll be delighted to see them because it's probably the best group. And I'm very
tight it is. What do you say to the players in the dressing room after the game?
Don't want to know. No. I'm a big believer in working one game at a time, right? I don't want the overhang. Every one of us is feeling down. Every one of us will not get to sleep at night. Every one of us will get to sleep at 3 in the morning and up at 7 in the morning. And that 4 hours you get is a broken sleep because all you're doing is thinking of the game. I'd like to hope everybody is feeling very similar. I know that's how my night's going to go.
Excited here at Stirling Albion Football Club today as they prepare to lift the Scottish League 2 trophy at home today against Forster Athletic. The Wallace Monument, as you can see in the background there, it's a historic city of Stirling, and it's been a great... Congratulations on winning League 2 with Stirling Albion, Danny. You've won promotions in the past, and you put a message out on social media last week saying you thought these days might have been past, so how much does this mean to you?
A lot. Last season obviously I was relegated and I'm thinking it's done maybe. I'm getting older. Last time on it was at Arbroath and maybe didn't save it as much as this one. This one I've saved it a lot. It means a lot to me. My age, son, family now, all been involved. It's just been a very special season.
Congratulations on winning League 2, Darren. You came into this club and they were 6th in the table. Yep. They had 6 successive defeats, and within 18 months you've taken them back to League 1 as champions. How proud are you of that achievement?
Yeah, delighted. Proud of the boys, proud of the team, everybody. It's been a real team effort on the park, off the park. Been brilliant. And again, kind of day one, the boys have kind of got into it, and off the back of that, I mean, this week.
Counter-attack, here comes Hattati. He's got Jota on his left or Kyogo on his right. He goes with Jota, who's up against Shaughnessy. First time ball in towards Kyogo, and it's a fantastic finish from the Japanese, but the flag is up on the far right hand side and we're going to go to VAR. But is he going to fancy a shot? Here he is, and he absolutely rifles it in.
You clearly do love football. I've never seen anyone so excited to be at Stirling Albion.
Well, the thing with football, Gav, is I just love it at all levels. There's obviously great football played in Scotland in the Premiership, but also down to the lower league. Stirling Albion, and in the case of that video, had just won League 2 at the time. And, the excitement there on that day was fantastic because for some people, Stirling Albion are their Celtic, their Manchester United, their Barcelona. And it's great to speak to those type of people because you just learn so much from them about their city, their town, their club. And that was a great day in particular, that one.
Fantastic. And that video ended there with a little bit of audio-descriptive commentary. So let's move it on to that and talk about what audio-descriptive commentary is. It says here, the specially trained commentator provides additional narration that describes all significant visual information, such as body language, facial expression, scenery, action, clothing, colours, and anything else that's important to conveying the image, venue, match, event, or surrounding ambience. During the match, the commentator should describe the on-pitch action rather than talking about statistics or tactics or providing lengthy summaries of previous action. Their training should include an introduction to visual awareness, followed by sessions on voice, technique, preparation, and language. Now, that's very interesting to me that it's quite so involved. I assumed it would just be kind of like radio commentary, but I guess it's not. Tell us how it differs.
So obviously, in terms of the commentary itself, you know, the clue, I suppose, is in the name in terms of the audio descriptive. You know, you have to be descriptive of everything that's going on, whether that be a player's position on the pitch, whether that be the strips that both teams are wearing, and any of the sort of small things that you would just take for granted as an ordinary fan. You know, maybe if there was a banner put up in the crowd or something that's going on even out with the pitch, it's about bringing the fans closer to the action that's going on the park, but any of the sort of unique elements of football fandom that occur off the park as well. So it's about continually making sure that your commentary is bringing the fans as close to the action as possible, because like so many, I'm sure we just take our sight for granted, and we go to a game of football and we're on autopilot. We don't think about it. We turn up, we support our team, we get involved in the highs and the lows of 90 minutes of manic action, and then we drive home or we get the bus home or whatever we do. Whereas for a lot of these fans, you know, particularly when they started going to football, they've spoken to people like ourselves that do the service at Celtic, and they've said they were quite daunted at first by going to football, because in the past their experience would be going to the game maybe with a family member who was trying to keep them up to date with what was going on in the park. But sometimes the family member, you know, would maybe run out of ideas if it was a particularly manic game and be worried about repeating themselves, and maybe would say, for instance, they couldn't make it that day and they had to go on their own. You know, they'd hear all the noises of the atmosphere, but they wouldn't really know what was happening in front of them. So the service has been, you know, fantastic for me. From my perspective, I love commentating for the fans. We are fortunate at Celtic that every manager that we've had since I've been at the club doing it has provided managers' notes for the fans before every match. So just the same way you get your programme notes if you buy the programme at Celtic, Brendan Rodgers and Ange Postecoglou, when he was here as well, record an exclusive element of a sort of programme notes, if you will, for the fans that access the service. So they're getting that communication from the manager, they're getting the commentary from myself and my colleagues, and obviously they've got the support of the disability liaison officer and the supporters liaison officer as well. So it's a really inclusive, unique experience that the commentary is a part of, but there's much more to it as well.
Brilliant. It's very interesting to think that you have to sort of switch your mind on to being able to describe things that you might be taking for granted. Like even players' appearances. I wonder, would you have to maybe describe a player as a fair-haired Canadian with an unusual gum-to-tooth ratio?
That would be a very good description, to be fair.
You can have that. You can have that one.
And with some things like that, so for instance, Greg Taylor has changed his hairstyle this year. He's looking very suave at the moment. And when you first see him come onto the pitch and he's got a new sort of look, yes, you would describe that to the fans. And typically one of the things that you wouldn't get probably on a radio commentary would be if a player scores a goal. Obviously, the radio commentator would describe the goal and talk about maybe the statistics of 8th goal of the season and this, that, and the next thing. Whereas for us, if the player has a unique celebration, we're having to describe that celebration to the fans. So maybe if it was to James Forrest and he's doing an e-slide or whatever it may be, you know, you're really describing that, who he's celebrating with. He's shaking hands with Nicholas Kuhn and Callum McGregor. They're walking back to the halfway line. Brendan Rodgers is punching the air in delight. He's speaking to John Kennedy about maybe a substitution that's coming up or whatever it may be. You're constantly looking for everything that's going on around a goal, around a big moment in a game, and trying to communicate that as best you can.
Yeah. See, I would get distracted if I was doing that, because knee slides are a particular bugbear of mine. You know, I think a goal has to be of a particular level of quality to justify a knee slide, not some goal-mouth scramble. You know, that's ridiculous.
Also, as well, I think see when it's a really hot day and the pitch is clearly dry. I hate when they try it because you just know they're going to tumble. You want a nice.
Those are my
wet day.
favorite ones. I want them to go wrong and face plant. Serves them right. So I'm going to play a little video in a second, which I found, which is from RTE, which I think really paints a picture of it very well. And you see the guy wearing an earpiece in one ear. And I was wondering, can anyone tune into that when you're at the game, or do you need a special earpiece? Do you have to be sitting in a particular area of the ground?
So at Celtic Park, it can be accessed anywhere in the ground. You need one of the sort of radio headsets that we have. Right. So you could request one of those from the club. And then normally some people bring their own earphones to plug into it. Some people obviously get provided those from the club, but it can be accessed anywhere in the stadium. And if you contact the club, if you were going to a match, you could request a headset and have access to that commentary. Longer term, myself and my colleagues would love it to be a service that could be accessed by more people than maybe just the fans that are in the ground. We'd love to have it accessible for fans that maybe can't make the game and would benefit from that type of commentary. But that's obviously plans for the future, but at the moment it's specifically in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be that hard to do these days, live streaming that audio.
Well, I just think long term, as you say, live streaming that audio could be beneficial for, fans, especially in the UK, where sometimes if matches aren't on TV, it can be frustrating that you're not getting to see them. So being able to listen on the radio would maybe, or a radio type commentary would be something that people would enjoy.
All right, let's check out this little video then from RTE.
Football fan Kevin Kelly lost his sight in 2001. He usually has to listen to matches on the radio at home, but tonight he is experiencing the thrills and spills of a live League of Ireland game for the first time in almost 20 years.
This will be the first night that I'll be able to fully enjoy the atmosphere and have it described for me what's happening on the pitch.
This has been made possible thanks to a new initiative from the National Council for the Blind of Ireland and Bohemians Football Club. Kevin is wearing an earpiece in one ear so he can hear audio description of the game. This is provided by a visual impairment specialist who is sat nearby.
We speak to our service users every single day. They're passionate about sport, and I think through seeing other clubs run it in Europe, I felt that what better chance to offer this to the guys.
While Kevin hears James's audio description through one ear, he can hear the crowd and match noises through the other.
It's great to be back here this evening, sampling the atmosphere. There's nothing better to make you feel part of your community, but to go along and support your team.
I thought that video was fantastic, and it sums up what the service can be like. It's very powerful for fans like Kevin, in this circumstance where, they get to sample the atmosphere of the crowd and what's going on, which is very important. We all love that when we go to a game of football, but crucially, they're getting that descriptive commentary that makes them be able to follow the action in their own unique way, which I think is fantastic. And it's something that, it might come across to some people as quite a simple idea, but I think it's incredibly effective. And as I say, when you just watch his reactions there to moments within the game, it just makes you happy because we have all those reactions ourselves.
Yeah, it really makes you think of all the things that are beyond just the sight. Feeling the crowd moving forward and the roar of the crowd, the smell of a passing pie or whatever it might be, I mean, all those things. Yeah, he looked like he was having a brilliant time. Really good. Heartwarming. As you know, one of our contributors, Michael, who lives in Rome, runs Finnegan's Irish Bar near the Colosseum. Drop in for a pint if you happen to be there. He has a son, Killian, who has represented Italy internationally at football, and he has a condition called aniridia, which means he has no irises. So the light like floods into his eyes. And he was at the Leipzig game. I was hoping you might be on that night and you might have a chance to bump into each other. But I understand you weren't working there for that game.
No, unfortunately, we've got a rota of commentators. So we've got 4 main commentators now this season, which is fantastic that the service has grown. So in terms of the Champions League, I've been allocated 2 games. So Slovan Bratislava and Club Brugge are the 2 games that I'm on for. And the other games I'm obviously on the stand and back in the team that way. But yeah, Killian's story is one that I am aware of. Michael reached out to our DLO to explain Killian's story and how he loves football and how he loves Celtic. And when you had said to me that he was arriving for the game, I was delighted for him because, you know, it's clear how much football means to him. And the fact that he was able to travel to Celtic Park, obviously living quite a bit away, to experience that game and experience everything that goes with it was phenomenal. And obviously to meet Joe Hart as well, what better way to spend your evening?
Yeah, not bad for a first game at Celtic Park, it has to be said. Well, let me just play the little video that we had from Killian's experience. He was at the match, so we've got some pics and a video of them. And look at this, He's getting to meet Joe Hart. Pretty awesome. Look how happy he looks.
Aye. You can feel it, you know, from the fall.
There it was his first time at Celtic Park. Absolutely brilliant.
You'll struggle to top it, to be honest.
I know, what a game to go to.
Jammy bastard.
It's insane.
Killian, how do you think the game went today?
I think Celtic played extremely well. I thought we deserved the win as well.
Yeah, excellent. You enjoyed the match?
Loved it. Great fun.
Good atmosphere?
Great atmosphere. Best fans in the world.
Excellent. Good job. See you later.
In terms of that, I was just so happy to see Killian's experience. And what's amazing for me is obviously the section that he was in there is the main section that we've got fans who access our service. Yes, you can access it all the way around the ground, but there are 3 or 4 rows of seats behind the home dugout where fans are based, and Killian was in that section. And some of the characters in that section are fantastic, you know, who are desperate to talk to you about their memories of Celtic throughout the years. And I should have added that actually when I was talking about audio-descriptive commentary. The unique nature of it is because of where we are based, our commentary position is just above the tunnel at Celtic Park. We walk past the fans that access our service before the game, so we always pop round, ask them how they are, talk to them about how they're obviously thinking of the team at the moment, maybe asking them how things are in their own lives as well. So we're getting to know them as people as well as obviously listeners to the service. And seeing Killian in that section just made me sort of proud of how much it's grown in the last number of years and how important it is for football at Celtic Park.
Yeah, amazing seats they have. And this all first came to my attention when I saw John Attenborough, who I'm sure you know. Let me put up some pics here of John.
John is a really inspiring character. I first met John probably about 3 years ago at Dundee United at Tannadice, and I was providing joint commentary with the commentator Sam. Funnily enough, the same name as John's beloved dog. And Sam's the Dundee United commentator. He also provides commentary for Dundee as well. He does both of those clubs. And I was asked to go through and provide joint commentary for Dundee United versus Celtic. And I first met John that evening. And, you know, it was clear from the first time that I'd met John that he was incredibly passionate about football. And he was incredibly passionate about spreading the message of audio-descriptive commentary and the way that football can be and is inclusive within Scottish football. So he's obviously now, over the coming years, I've met him many times since, he's set out in this incredible journey around all 42 professional SPFL grounds with Sam, his beloved dog, as I was saying. And the fact that he's achieved it and the SPFL marked it by giving him an award and both of them a medal, I just thought was absolutely brilliant. And for Celtic to get in touch and invite him and Sam to Celtic Park, to promote the work that Guide Dogs Scotland do was great. And he got on incredibly well with Luke McCowan. He's obviously met Brendan Rodgers as well, which was another moment that he cherishes. And he has admitted, although Dundee United is his club, when it comes to women's football, he is a Celtic women's supporter. Sam always loves going to Celtic Park, and John has said that when it comes to women's football in Scotland, he has more than a soft spot for Celtic because of the treatment that he's had and how much Sam enjoys going to Celtic Park as well.
And here is an image of John being interviewed on the Celtic Exchange podcast, which it's close to rivaling a Celtic World as the best Celtic content out there. It's really excellent, the stuff they do. So, yeah, you can check out that episode if that's of interest to you. Here's a quick snippet of John's story.
If I didn't have Sam, going to games by myself would be extremely difficult because I would be relying on my long cane. And for me personally, my long cane skills are really not that great. Like, even to this day, I still hate using my long cane. And the way I always explain it to people is, like, if you've got the long cane in your hand, you're having to find all the obstacles in your way yourself. So, like, you're finding if there's like bends, lampposts, other people, even just walking half a mile down the road, you're absolutely exhausted by the time you get there with all these obstacles that you're navigating around. Now imagine that on a match day where there's loads of people crisscrossing all over the place. You've got busy kiosks, you've got all sorts going on. Doing that with a long cane by yourself would be extremely challenging. Whereas when I've got Sam, I can just kind of switch off, let him do his thing and act as a guide and just take me around all these obstacles that, I don't even know that they're there, because I'm just following him and he's guiding me around them. So if it wasn't for Sam, I wanted to go to games on a regular basis, I would have to rely on having somebody with me as a sighted guide, and Sam just allows me that freedom to go to a game on the weekend without having to rely on somebody else.
Shining a light there on the wondrous relationship that these people have with their guide dogs, what companions these dogs are. And I'm more kindly disposed towards dogs such as those than I am to those of my neighbour that are making a lot of noise right now. So I apologize if that's coming across on the audio. All right, so you work at Celtic Park a fair bit then. Have you got any inside information into the machinations of Brendan's mind you'd like to share with us?
I've met him on a few occasions and obviously spoken to him in a couple of press conferences. And what I always find with him, last year I felt at the start of the season he admitted it himself after the league was won down in Kilmarnock, that he was, perhaps it was a bit awkward for everyone. And I think he was being very careful about, the way he was coming across, and maybe things didn't come across the most natural way. But I think particularly this season, he's just... he's been back to his old self, I would say, in terms of the way he communicates with the media, the way he's communicating with everyone. And he certainly looks now that he's put his own stamp on the team with a number of signings and results and performances going really well. Most notably, obviously, the recent games against Leipzig, the Slovan Bratislava game. I think he now feels fully in control of everything that's going on. There's no post-Ange hangover anymore. It's his team. The fans, for the most part, have obviously bought into that, and he just looks like a man who's completely at ease. I mean, the slip in the semi-final against Aberdeen was fantastic, and I thought he handled that pretty well. I asked him about it in the press conference. I said, you took one hell of a bump there. Was it sore? And he said, it was my ego that was sore. I probably died of embarrassment. So he's certainly been in good form, and I would say and the occasions that I have had the chance to speak to him, whether that be from a media perspective or meeting him in and around Celtic Park, particularly for some of the Celtic women's games where he regularly attends and watches, he's very relaxed and more than happy to speak to fans that approach him. And that's something that I think should always be a part of Celtic. You know, the fans give the club incredible backing, and it's nice when players or coaches or managers can have that time to have a little conversation. It might only be 30 seconds to a minute, but that will make someone's day. And that's something in my experience of Brendan in this second spell he's back at the club. I think he's certainly made as much time as possible for fans and everyone around the club, which is great to see.
Yeah, well, he's a 51-year-old County Antrim boy. You got to expect him to be affable. That's what we have.
They always are.
Yeah, he comes from a wee place, as you know, probably Carnlough, which is a few villages along from where my family are from. So, you know, and we grew up, we were the same age, really. I wonder sometimes whether we might have been at the same parochial hall discos, you know, dancing to New Order and Free Nelson Mandela and all the rest of it, which was well before your time. All right, so let's have a little look at your career then, in sort of an expanded way, your football journalism. There's another little show reel here which shows you working in Scotland and beyond.
Callum, that's good.
Rodgers. There you go.
You would see them in May for a celebration. How do you feel now that you've delivered them?
Well, that puts us under pressure. I'm happy with the pressure, isn't it?
Lift that trophy up. Just show us it. Just how great is it as club captain when you get to lift that trophy for the first time?
Oh, it's stuff you dream of as a wee boy, do you know what I mean? And obviously it's the first one for the club in 16 years, so I'm absolutely over it, man. I'll be celebrating tonight.
Do you think Aberdeen are in a relegation battle just based on current form?
Well, I think based on current form, you've answered your own question. You're only being Italian.
How do you go about turning that around after the ending like today?
Well, we've got a cup game next.
Just on Jamie Mulgrew, just how crucial is he to this team? All the experience he's got and he still continues to deliver.
Jamie again, you talk about Kyle at the other end, sort of breaking and scoring goals again in midfield.
Well, you're certainly getting around there, Callum. Germany, Netherlands, Northern Ireland, all the glamorous spots.
Without question. And the thing in terms of obviously Northern Ireland and in terms of covering football over there, I actually want to cover some League of Ireland football in the coming years if possible as well, because I think that's a league that's absolutely fantastic and so many clubs going for the title this year. Of course, Shelbourne winning it with Damien Duff, who obviously, of course, was at Celtic for a period coaching. So the reason I love football in Ireland as a whole is the fact that at the moment there is no VAR involved, and I just feel that sometimes that can make a difference to the feel of a match of football. I just think it's probably a throwback, for want of a better phrase, and it's pure and honest football. Yes, there has been investment in clubs like Larne. Obviously, Shamrock Rovers down in the League of Ireland have obviously had a bit of investment, and they've done really well in recent years and are continuing to do so in the Conference League this season. But I feel that in those leagues in particular, NIFL and the League of Ireland, that anybody can almost beat anyone, and there are lots of historic clubs, and the beauty of the nature of Ireland is they are in a very sort of condensed area geographically, where you've got so many Dublin clubs, you've got so many Belfast clubs, and there are so many derbies that spring up, and I think that makes for an entertaining spectacle. So I always love covering football over there. In terms of Germany, I have to say the German clubs have been fantastic with me over the years with access. I interviewed Yusuf Poulsen, who's at Leipzig, a couple of seasons back, and he was fantastic. Leipzig as a club have always been really open. Mainz, of course, as well. Frankfurt, Bayer Leverkusen, the year before they won the title, I had an interview with Timothy Fosu-Mensah, who was at Manchester United in the past. And again, they've been great with access. And over in the Netherlands as well, I've got a friend who's a football writer, James Rowe, who's covered football over there for a number of years. So I try and visit him at least once a season. So the first time I went over, I went to a match at Ajax. The second time I went over, I went to a match at Utrecht. The next time I go over, I would like to go to Feyenoord or PSV. So it's just fantastic. And covering football, whether that be in Scotland or further afield, as I say, that enthusiasm never dwindles from me. I'm just obsessed with football to the point where my wife jokes, is there anything else that you watch on TV? We maybe watch a couple of shows together, but I'm always looking to watch highlights from whether that be the French league or the Italian league or the Spanish league, or obviously football here in the UK and Ireland. So it's just something I've always been like since I was a child. I just loved the game, loved playing the game when I was younger, and now just love watching the game for fun or watching it and covering it as well as part of work, which is, a dream come true.
Yeah. Living the dream. Did you get to Solitude in Belfast, Cliftonville's ground?
I did, and I know Jim Magilton and Gerard Little quite well, and I was fortunate that when I've been over there, I've taken a couple of games in at Solitude, but Gerard Little also gave me a tour of the ground and told me stories of sort of Cliftonville days gone past with the late great Tommy Breslin and the double winning team that they were able to build, winning back-to-back doubles, and obviously playing Celtic in that Champions League qualifier. So, I've been very fortunate, I have to say, with the clubs in Northern Ireland and even further afield, that, the fact that you're coming from afar, obviously Northern Ireland, not necessarily the furthest from Scotland, but if you're travelling from somewhere else to go and watch football in their country, what I've found is that people are more than happy to spend a bit of time with you, telling you some stories about the history and the culture of their club. And when I was over in Frankfurt in particular, they gave me access to their museum. It's normally open just for hospitality guests on a match day, but they let me in, and one of the staff took me around and was telling me stories about the teams and the history of the club from years gone by. And that welcoming spirit is what I hope that if people come to Scotland, maybe journalists or writers or fans, they can get that experience as well that I've had, because it's fantastic to learn about different clubs over the piece.
Mm-hmm. And in that video we played there, it closed with you talking to David Healy, who interestingly did his coaching badges with my little brother in Northern Ireland, and who else was there but none other than, God, his name escapes me, I'm getting old. What do you call that complete idiot? He played for Rangers for a short time. He's English. Joey Barton.
Oh, I've interviewed him.
He was also on their sort of intake or whatever, in their classrooms and stuff. Apparently every time he opened his mouth, just everyone was rolling their eyes, just thought he was unbearable. But yes, I won't ask for comment on that, Callum. Yes, remain professional. Okay, let's talk about some of the other highlights then of your journalism career. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Chris Sutton to discuss winning the Premier League at Rovers, partnership with Alan Shearer, Celtic FC, Martin O'Neill, Henrik Larsson, and his work with Scotland Sky. Chris Sutton gets around. What was he like to chat to?
Do you know, the way you see him on screen with Sky and BT in years gone by is the way I find him when you speak to him. He's always got that glint in his eye that he's thinking of a one-liner or something witty to say, but at the same time, remarkably honest. He'll talk about his career, and one of the things that he's always said on record, not just to myself, but numerous people over the years, is that Martin O'Neill really did rescue his career in many ways, because, as he would admit himself, at Chelsea, for love nor money, he just could not get a run of goals going. He just didn't have a good time on the pitch. He wasn't particularly enjoying things off the pitch. The fans were on his back for obvious reasons. He was a big money signing, didn't work out. And he always says, Martin O'Neill rescued my career. And so much so that obviously he had his great time at Celtic with Martin. And Martin then phoned him when he was at Aston Villa and said, look, Chris, I'm desperate. I've got an injury crisis. Will you come and sign for me? And Chris said, oh, I was thinking about retiring. And Martin said, I'm desperate. And Chris went and joined him at Aston Villa. So, you know, a remarkable character, someone that was an incredible player for Celtic, but also someone that I enjoy listening to as a pundit. I know people sometimes say, oh, he's a bit pantomime, and the way him and Chris Boyd and Sky go back and forth. But I think when you look at Sky Sports down south in England with Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, that's commonplace, I think, throughout media at the moment, whether you like it or you don't. And I think Chris Sutton does a very good job as a pundit in Scotland, and I certainly do enjoy listening to him.
Yeah, plus if you're on screen with Chris Boyd, it's hard not to, you know, have a bit of a laugh at his expense.
Absolutely. I think it's one of those where, with the results and the way things are going at the moment, you know, I think it's one of those, if the shoe was on the other foot and Celtic were going through a bad time, you know, Chris Boyd would be doing the same back to Sutton. But as it happens, it looks as if Chris Sutton's going to have the last laugh for a number of years ahead, potentially.
No doubt. Here's another one of your tweets. Sven is one of my favourite interviewees, as he spoke with joy about football and his time in the game when we spoke in 2021. Watching his final goodbye in the new film about his life is very emotional. Yeah, I'm sure we all remember that. So, yeah, tell us about Sven.
I was given the chance to speak to him in 2021, and when I had phoned him, he had just finished playing tennis in the morning. So it was quite funny. For the first 5 minutes of the interview, he was saying, I might be a bit slow to start because I'm just off the court and aches and pains of exercise. And we had about an hour of time, and he opened up on his career at teams like Lazio and Benfica, and then obviously his time with England and Manchester City. And what I find remarkable about him in that time was there's a sort of caricature of him, as you get with a lot of high-profile footballers or managers, where we think of things that maybe they've done as players and managers, maybe things that have been put out there about their personal lives, and maybe sometimes we draw an assumption of character. But I found him very affable, very down-to-earth, and very self-deprecating, you know, where he would obviously make light of different moments in his career. And for me, what I liked about him was he was remarkably honest. He talked about he didn't like, obviously, the intrusion of the English media into aspects of his life, but he did laugh and say, well, maybe at times I didn't necessarily help myself with that, you know. So he was someone that I felt had a good level of self-awareness. And, you know, he was someone who had an incredible career. I know a lot of people focus particularly on his spell as the England manager because he was the first foreign coach that England ever had, and that gets a lot of attention. But, you know, the work he did in Serie A for a number of years, the work he did at Benfica, at Gothenburg as well, you know, he had an incredible managerial career. Yes, the spell with England was arguably his most high-profile role in the UK because of the nature of the media that generates. But, you know, he was an outstanding manager in his era. And yes, in latter years, he maybe became a bit of a journeyman, and he was managing, obviously, Manchester City. He was at Leicester City. He had the Notts County debacle. But when you look back at the Notts County situation, you know, Sven was due millions of pounds as part of the contract he signed, and he was happy to give all of that up for just to let the club run, because obviously they had a takeover that they thought was genuine, and in the end it turned out not to be. And if he was to have, you know, taken the club to court, he would have been due that money because he signed a legally binding contract. But when he found out about what was going on behind the scenes, he walked away from that. And that's something that obviously comes out more in the film about his life. And it's something that a lot of Notts County fans have actually thanked him for, because he didn't necessarily have that well publicised at the time. But it's something that obviously has come out and has been backed up by people that are at Notts County now, who say when they look back at that era of the club, it could have been very, very precarious for them if a lot of people that were owed money from that time had stuck to their guns and went after it. Whereas, thankfully, people that Sven, you know, And I suppose he obviously had offers to go elsewhere, did the right thing in his mind to go elsewhere and let them take care of themselves.
Yeah, he was a hugely successful football manager. He was in the game in high-profile jobs for such a long time. And that doesn't happen unless you've got something about you. And, of course, the England job's poisoned chalice anyway. That was where lots of football reputations go to be damaged, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, as you say with the England job, I mean, so many people have tried it, and it's been a poison chalice for many years.
Next up, mental health in football is a concern among players, managers, and staff at clubs across the globe. In this article, I look at the pressures that those within the game face, as well as the traumatic experiences that some footballers carry with them. This is a subject we've dealt with before on the show. We had a special episode dedicated to it and spoke to Green Sunrise. I don't know if you're familiar with them in Glasgow.
No, actually.
Well, I'll point you to that after the show. You can check it out. It's a Celtic fan, this fella who's using what he's learned all about how to cope with his own mental health issues and talking to people and techniques that he's developed over time to help people who may be suffering. Yes, in that we talked all about mental health problems that regular folk are having, but also people in the game, young players and the like. And we looked into Clark Carlisle's work. And this sounds a bit like what you're talking about, the pressures within the game. Tell me about this article and what you discovered in writing it.
Well, in terms of mental health, I should start by saying that myself, I've suffered from bouts of depression over the years, and the book that I wrote, Behind the Curtain of the Beautiful Game, I actually didn't make any money from that. I donated all the money made from the book to a mental health charity based in Greenock called Man on Inverclyde. It's been rebranded at the moment to be called Anchor. Obviously, Man on Inverclyde, it was aimed at tackling male mental health initially, but it's now expanding as a charity, which is fantastic. And they do great work within schools and other establishments across Inverclyde. But yeah, in terms of this article, I think the Dele Alli story particularly resonated with me. He spoke to Gary Neville on the overlap, and he was very honest about some of the real childhood trauma that he had in his life. And it's easy for fans to look at a player who's maybe doing really well at one point in their career and then they tail off and think it's just, a player who's maybe not got the hunger anymore. They've not got the right attitude and maybe not interested. But trauma is one of those things that, can rear its ugly head, sadly at different times. You might experience an event in your life that is difficult, maybe at the age of, 16 or 20. And that experience might not fully come out and have its impact on you for a number of years down the line. And I certainly think for Dele Alli, that was part of the issue. He had a few bad injuries at Tottenham. And he was out for an extended period of time. And unfortunately for him, obviously, he had sort of traumatic grief that was coming back from experiences in childhood. He then had a bit of an addiction to sleeping pills that he opened up with to Gary Neville in that interview. And that's something that The Athletic have reported has been quite widespread in English football at times, and it's something they're trying to tackle. So in terms of the article, I looked at someone like Freddie Adu, who obviously was a real poster boy of football in the United States in the sort of early 2000s, and the troubles that he had with mental health in his career as things didn't necessarily go the way that he wanted them to. And then obviously contrasted that with Dele Alli, who was probably the most recent version of a high-profile player that went through similar issues. And the reason I wanted to highlight both of those was this isn't an issue that's completely new. It's an issue that's been around for a long time, but thankfully the main difference is people are more open to talking about it now and getting the support they need. And the reason I wanted to talk about it through the prism of football is I think for a lot of fans, hearing about athletes or players that they've seen or admired, if they're talking about the experiences that they've struggled with, I think it can hopefully help fans and even writers or podcasters or whoever it may be seek the help that they need should they require it.
Yes, I remember in that episode that we did with Green Sunrise, we were talking a lot about the unbelievable pressures that these young guys are under, you know. I mean, we're all under pressure in our lives. We all have different stresses. But, you know, I think one of the worst elements is when these little 17-year-old guys who have big dreams of stardom get let go. And, you know, they're often poorly educated because they've been focusing on football, you know, since they were tiny, and they have no plan B, and that must be absolutely brutal to be sort of that age and completely all at sea, and all your dreams, everything you've dreamt of every night for years is gone because you've been told you're too small or too slow or you're just not going to cut it.
Absolutely. I think it's certainly the pressures that come, the fruits of the labour that come with football. If you're successful, are fantastic. The fandom, obviously, the better you are at football in the modern day, the chances are the more money you're going to earn with the finances of clubs in the Champions League or the Premier League or wherever it may be. But the pressures that come with it as well can take their toll if things don't go their way. And I think it is important that people like Dele Alli and others speak out about it, because it can help people within the game, but also people out with the game as well.
Well, good on you for doing that work. But let's end this little conversation with focusing on some of the more glamorous aspects of your work. And we'll turn our attention to the Champions League, no less. So that's among the most glamorous aspects of your job, Champions League finals and the like. Come on, Callum, what's going on?
Yeah, no, covering that was an absolute joy. Obviously, the final last season was in London, you know, so for me, I'd covered a few German games throughout the season, so I just felt that with it being in London, I would hopefully apply and see if I could be successful in receiving my accreditation for it. And thankfully it came through, which was great, and the whole experience was just phenomenal. You know, the scale of it all was magnificent. You know, one of the things that was interesting is for a normal game that you're on doing press for, you'd maybe be in an hour, 2 hours before the game, whereas for this you had to be in about 3.5 hours before the game, just with the level of security in and around Wembley, you know, in terms of the wait and the queues getting in as well. So I think it was an 8 o'clock kickoff that night. I was there at the ground for about 4:30, and you know, the press room was absolutely you know, full at that time already, and there was great people within there. Peter Schmeichel was in there, Chris Sutton, who we talked about earlier, was in there. Peter Schmeichel was working for CBS, Chris Sutton was doing 5 Live, and there was a whole host of people in there. Stuart Pearce was doing TalkSport, and you know, there was lots of people mingling and talking about the game, and the atmosphere and the lead up to the game was great. TNT Sports had Jose Mourinho as a pundit. Anytime he came up on the screen, the Madrid fans cheered, the Dortmund fans booed. Jurgen Klopp was at the game. He was in hospitality that night. Anytime he came up on the screen, the Dortmund fans cheered, the Madrid fans booed, and that made it an interesting atmosphere before the game. And then in terms of the game itself, I felt Dortmund were the better team for large parts of the game. Karim Adeyemi was fantastic on the night. He was causing Dani Carvajal lots of problems. Erdin Terzic, for whatever reason, took him off, and then Real Madrid scored through Carvajal a matter of moments later, and the history was almost was made there and then before Vinicius added another goal late on. But for me, it was just an incredible occasion to cover. It was an incredible occasion to witness. And, it's something that I don't take for granted, and something that will always live with me. I hope to do one again in the future, but even if I never did cover another game or another Champions League final, I'll always hold that one very dear.
Well, you might get to this one if Celtic make it to the final.
That would be the dream, imagine.
No,
I don't know how my emotions would stay in check, though.
You know what I was thinking there is you're talking about all the players and the ex-players and managers and the like who were there. But I wonder, as a journalist, were you also thrilled to be rubbing shoulders with big-name journos that you've admired the work of down the years?
Yeah, for sure. So, Gabriel Marcotti was there, who obviously has been an incredible journalist for, ESPN he's with at the moment. He's worked at the Times and others in years gone by. Henry Winter, another journalist who, has an incredible profile. And it was great to also, as you say, rub shoulders with journalists like that, and also speak to people like Graham Hunter, obviously fellow Scot, but he's out in Spain, obviously covering La Liga. He was there for the final. Guillaume Balaguer and others were there. Raphael Honigstein, obviously from the German perspective. Jonathan Northcroft. I was fortunate enough to do a preview piece for the final with both Raphael Honigstein and Jonathan Northcroft, as well as Paul Ballas, Spanish journalist. So it was nice to meet them at the final, having spoken to them on the build-up as well. So just an incredible occasion, from off the pitch stuff to the game itself.
You mentioned Guillaume Balaguer. Here's an interesting callback. He was also on the UEFA badges coaching course that my brother did with those other players, because he apparently just really wanted to understand the game from, that perspective, would further his understanding. So apparently he was a great fella. And apparently David Healy was a great fella, according to my brother. But nobody was a big fan of Barton, as you can imagine. But I think we've already covered that. All right. Well, look, Callum, it's been a wide-ranging chat. It's been amazing to have you on. I really appreciate you coming and spending some time here at the Celtic World.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, and keep up the great work that you do, because Celtic is a club. A lot of people focus on Glasgow and Scotland, but people like yourself, there are people all around the world that support Celtic, and I think you're doing a great job shining the light on the far-reaching places that Celtic goes to.
Good man. All right, Callum, all the best.
All the best. Take care.
All righty then. That was Callum McFadden. Fun chat with him. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. Of course, in the chat, most of the chat was dominated by people recalling quiz show names. So it's nice to see that you're staying focused. Kaiser and Ampang Boy doing their best there to keep it on subject. Yeah, I thought it was very enjoyable. He's a good lad, Callum. And he might be back on again sometime on a regulation show to participate as a contributor. So that'll be fun. Here's a quick message for you all.
Hello, lovely boys. I love the Celtic world. I do. Absolutely brilliant. If you haven't already, subscribe immediately.
Subscribe immediately if you haven't already. That's a good message, isn't it? It's absolutely free. Doesn't cost you a penny. We'll never charge you for content. Nobody owns us. We're not worried about losing access rights to the club. Completely independent fan media. Costs you nothing. Takes you 2 seconds to click that subscribe button. And you won't be inundated with notifications twice a week, Monday and Thursday. We stream. So, what's to stop you doing it right now? Subscribe immediately. All right, I think that's about it. Thank you very much, everyone in the chat. As always, we'll be back, of course, on Monday. No, today's Monday. We'll be back, of course, on Thursday. Because the international break is soon to be coming to an end, so we'll start getting back into the preview and review shows. Yeah, we do have a lot of contributors at the moment. We need more. We need to bolster the squad. You know, it's got quite a few injuries. People away travelling. Some people don't even wake up in time. Would you believe, Kaiser? Sleep through their alarm. You know, so availability is the best ability. So that's why we need to beef up the squad. All right, everyone. As Tam Mac says, hail, hail. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all on the next one. Cheery bye.